news here on TV1. You're joining me, Devi Paldana. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines.
Curfew imposed in several districts lifted. Curfew imposed in the northern province, Colombo, Gampa and Putlam districts continues. President Secretary instructs all banks to be kept open when the curfew is lifted. Number of confirmed COVID-19 patients in the country rises to 86. Cities in Pakistan on lockdown after cases jump to 645.
Now, in your latest update about the curfew imposed in the Colombo, Gampaha, Puttalam and 5 districts in the northern province will be lifted at 6 a.m. tomorrow. However, the curfew will be reimposed at 12 noon and will be in effect until 6 a.m. on Friday, the 27th of March. The curfew will once again be imposed at 12 noon on the 27th of March. Now, the curfew for other districts will be reimposed at 2 p.m. today. This curfew will be lifted at 6 a.m. on Thursday and will be reimposed at 12 noon on the same day. Meanwhile, the President's media division said that the residents of these districts will not be allowed to travel across districts. Foreigners too have been barred from travelling within the country. Farmers, however, will be allowed to engage in agricultural activities. Essential commodities such as vegetables and rice can be distributed across the country. Now, moving on to more local news, Minister of Health Pavitra Vanyarchi says that the number of COVID-19 patients in the country has risen to 86. Meanwhile, 222 individuals suspected of having contracted the virus are currently under medical supervision.
Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jaisingh has said that the COVID-19 patients are being treated at the intensive care unit of the IDH hospital. Meanwhile, Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Chavendra Silva said more than 3,500 people have been quarantined across 45 quarantine centers in the country.
Now, Minister of Health Pavitra Vanyarchi says that the number of COVID-19 patients have increased in the country. Now, yesterday, 4 patients were tested positive for the virus, bringing the total number of affected patients to 82. That figure rose up to 87 this morning. 9 patients have been identified over the last 24 hours. 225 are receiving treatment on suspicion of having contracted the disease. Now, moving on to local news, the general public in the country, except for 8 districts, was seen fulfilling their daily needs after the curfew was lifted at 6 a.m. today. The curfew of those areas will be reimposed at 2 p.m. today.
The government previously announced that arrangements have been made to facilitate the people to purchase essential goods from stores. However, health authorities have advised only one person from each household to visit stores when the curfew is lifted. This was the situation at the Hatton Public Market today. This was the situation at the Hingaragoda town this morning. People flocked to the Badula town this morning to purchase essential goods after the curfew was lifted. This was a manner in which residents of Gaul fulfilled their daily needs. Residents of Kalutara travel to the Kalutara town to meet their daily requirements. The curfew in the Colombo, Gampaha, Putlam, Mana, Vaunia, Mullaitivu, Kilinochchi and Gampaha districts will be lifted at 6 a.m. tomorrow.
The President's Secretary has informed all banks to be kept open when the curfew is lifted in certain areas of the country today. Now, President's Secretary P.B. Jayasundara requested the Ceylon Bank Employees Union to extend their support in this regard and to obtain the services of a limited amount of staff during this period. Now, the Road Development Authority says that expressways can be used for transportation in areas in which the curfew has been lifted. However, the RDA advises the public to use expressways only to travel for essential reasons. Now, the RDA added that only those who have valid curfew passes will be allowed to use expressways in the areas in which the curfew is in effect. Now, face masks were distributed free of charge in several areas today in a bid to help the country step up its efforts against COVID-19.
A group of employees at a garment factory in Gaul manufactured approximately 2,000 face masks to be distributed among the clergy and the general public. Our correspondent stated that the manufactured face masks were distributed at the Yatakala Rajamaha Viharaya and the Sri Purvarama temple in Meegoda. A group of youth, together with the assistance of villagers in the Daduhela area in Ahangama, had manufactured approximately 2,000 face masks. Our correspondent stated that these face masks are to be distributed to the Walana hospital in Waligama. This individual, who runs a tailoring shop in Trincomalee, has manufactured 7,000 face masks to be distributed free of charge. Our correspondent stated that some of these masks have been distributed among the inmates at the Trincomalee prison.
Now, Postmaster General Ranjit Aryaratna has instructed Grama Niladhari officers to issue the Senior Citizens Allowance and the allowance for sick people for the month of March this year.
The Postmaster General informed the beneficiaries of these pensions to collect their allowance from their respective Grama Niladhari officers. He also advised the public to fix an appointment before meeting the Grama Niladhari officers in order to comply with the current health regulations imposed in the country. The Postmaster General stated that it is difficult to issue these allowances through post offices as usual under the current circumstances. He pointed out that the new method to obtain these allowances was implemented to prevent the elderly and sick persons from gathering in one place.
Now, taking a look at the international arena, in concern to the coronavirus outbreak, the death toll from the coronavirus pandemic continued its relentless rise in Europe, with Italy announcing 651 dead in one day, bringing its total up to 5,476. The total number of cases in Italy rose to 59,138, an increase of 10.4%. Now, the Pakistani government has imposed a lockdown in the southern Sindh province, home to nearly 50 million people and the country's largest city, Karachi. The lockdown that started last night will last 2 weeks in the province. The province has reported almost 50% of the total 645 coronavirus cases in Pakistan. Now, meanwhile, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern just announced the country would move to a higher alert level, a 3 out of 4 for the next 48 hours before the highest level of 4 is deployed before shutting down the country. The Canadian death toll from the virus jumped up almost 50% in less than a day. Canadian Olympic Committee has called on the IOC to postpone the Tokyo Olympic Games for 1 year. Team Canada said it would not send its athletes to Tokyo 2020 due to the coronavirus risk. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has said postponing the Olympic Games could become an option if it is not possible to hold the Games in its complete form. Australia is shutting down non-essential services as coronavirus cases rapidly rise in the country. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced the restrictions after a national cabinet meeting. The number of cases in Australia has risen sharply in recent days, reaching 1,315. Jordan's Food and Drug Administration authorized physicians to use hydroxychloroquine along with an antiviral medicine as a treatment for COVID-19 patients in the advanced stage of the disease. German Chancellor Angela Merkel will self-quarantine after coming into contact with a person who tested positive for coronavirus. While in quarantine, Merkel will continuously be tested for the virus. Coronavirus has claimed more than 100 lives in the past 24 hours in the United States, bringing the total to 389 deaths. Rand Paul, the Republican of Kentucky, has become the first U.S. senator to test positive for coronavirus. Former film producer Harvey Weinstein, who is currently serving a prison sentence, has tested positive for the coronavirus. The number of people killed in France by the coronavirus outbreak increased by another 112 to a total of 674. A total of 16,018 cases of infection have been recorded in France. Singapore Airlines has slashed 96% of its capacity until the end of April amid an unprecedented crisis in the airline industry. Singapore will close its borders starting tomorrow after recording its first 2 deaths because of the coronavirus pandemic. Most of the imported cases in Singapore are returning citizens and residents, and many travelling from the UK. Iran's supreme leader refused American assistance to fight the new coronavirus, citing a conspiracy theory claiming it could be man-made by the United States government. Al-Khamenei's comments came yesterday as Iran faces crushing US sanctions blocking the country from selling its crude oil and accessing international financial markets. Turkey confirmed 9 more deaths from the novel coronavirus, bringing the total fatalities up to 30. Qatar will provide $150 million to support the Palestine-controlled Gaza Strip in its fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Syria said it had confirmed its first case of coronavirus in a person who had come from abroad. Health Minister Nizar al-Ziji told foreign media the necessary measures had been taken. Saudi Arabia recorded 119 new cases of the virus for a total of 511, the highest in the Gulf Arab region.
Now shifting back to local news, the anti-corruption unit of the Kalutara police has seized a stock of liquor which was to be sold at higher rates after the curfew was lifted.
The stock of alcohol measured 165 litres in quantity. 4 members of the same family were arrested along with the stock of liquor. The suspects are residents of Payagala. A raid was carried out in Ranminitanna upon information received by the Special Task Force camp in Tissa Maharama. 2 suspects were nabbed with 40 litres of illicit liquor and a barrel used to distill alcohol. They are due to be produced before the Tissa Maharama court today.
Now, as a result of the countrywide curfew, the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission says that state university students will be offered free internet facilities for e-learning from today. Now, according to the TRC, this facility will be granted in collaboration with the University Grants Commission and will be in effect until the situation returns to normalcy. Now, the infectious disease physician Dr. Sanjay Senanayaka expressed the following tips on how to minimize social distancing in the workplace.
If you are in a workplace, there are ways to minimize the interaction you have with other people but still carry on. For example, do not shake hands. Practice namaste. Other things that you can do is have lunch at your own workstation or desk instead of in a communal area. You can make sure windows are open so there's good ventilation throughout the building. People shouldn't have big meetings in a single meeting room. You can have meetings online. People who can work at home should work at home. So these are all opportunities to minimize social distancing.
Another infectious diseases specialist, Dr. Changa Kulukularatna, also expressed his views and spoke to Newsfirst.
Listen to your government in the time of crisis. The government looks at a problem with multiple different viewpoints, not just one or two. Do your part. If not, the illness will spread. And what happens if the illness spreads as quickly as it can? People will die, and your healthcare system will quickly become overwhelmed, and the capacity threshold will be reached, putting everyone in jeopardy. Be responsible for the information you disseminate.
Now, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, multiple situations in many countries are breaking out. One such problem is that at least 23 people have died in one of Bogota's largest jailbreaks in what authorities are calling a mass breakout attempt amid rising tensions over the coronavirus in Colombia. Colombia's Justice Minister Margarita Cabello said 83 inmates were injured during a riot at the La Modelo prison. Inmates at prisons across the country held protests against overcrowding and poor health services during the coronavirus outbreak. The Justice Minister is investigating. The Justice Minister said the violence was a coordinated plan with disturbances reported across 13 of the country's prisons. Now, an earthquake has rocked Croatia's capital Zagreb, damaging buildings and leaving cars crushed by falling debris. A teenager is in a critical condition after a roof collapsed. After yesterday's tremor, Zagreb's mayor urged people to return to their homes given fears about the coronavirus. The 5.3 magnitude quake is the largest to affect the city in 140 years. Aside from the teenager, another 16 people were injured. Well, that is a wrap of lunchtime news here on TV1. Stay tuned with News First as we bring you the very latest in developing news both locally and internationally. For the News First team, I'm Devi Paldano. Take care.